Hello everyone. We have a game with the white pieces against Guguru's 007. Rated 1600. He plays a Scandinavian. Bringing the queen out on move 2. We're just going to develop a piece and attack it. He plays queen a5. This is the main line of the Scandinavian. And now we're just going to put our pawn in the center, like we always do, controlling some squares. Black develops his knight towards the center. Logical move. We're going to develop our knight towards the center. Most natural square. Black develops a minor piece, pins our knight, which is protecting the center. That's fine. I'm going to play h3 just to see what do you want to do with the bishop. It's a free move. It might confuse him. It might make him make a mistake, and it's not going to worsen our position. Okay, so he decides to go to h5. So there are always ideas of kicking it, jumping your knight in here. Those are options. I don't know exactly which lines those are in, like which move orders and stuff. If your bishop's out first, if it's not out, if you have bishop d2 in first, if you don't, like I don't really know. Here, I hit the bishop. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. It also prevents him from developing the knight, because then I could really mess up his structure. I mean, he could develop here, but that did not put pressure on this pawn. So now he does move his bishop back. And I am inclined to aggressively jump my knight in earlier than I would normally when I'm not castled and not fully developed. But like I said, I know that this is I've seen this idea in general. Doesn't mean it's good here. You could just apply it randomly, but for some reason I feel like it isn't, at the very least it isn't bad here. I don't think he can, like, I have good development because I have no pawns covering my bishops even though they haven't moved. So he goes e6. This opens up some squares for his bishop, a post for his knight. So let's see, what do we want to do? I think this bishop is now in an awkward spot, and I'm familiar with the chunk where you push these two pawns, inducing a6 and then taking the bishop, messing up his whole structure. So I'm gonna again forego development in light of h4, h5. I could start with bishop g2, creating a threat. He wants to play c6 anyway. I don't know which one, like which move order's more accurate, but I'm gonna hunt the bishop first. It seems more consistent than the random threat, although it's more for development. It's more for free development then, because you're gonna win a pawn. But I think this is, yes, exactly. So now this is exactly what we wanted. We were threatening to trap the bishop. The only way to get out of that is to create some space, but now we can take the bishop, and now look at this pawn structure. So this already gives us basically, like, let's say, winning endgames if we don't want to play a middle game. But he has a lot of light square weaknesses. And now that we did this whole operation, I think it's time to develop / take advantage of this. We have this move, we have this move, we have this move, we have this move. Which one should we attack? Either way, he's going to go king here. Okay, let's develop our bishop and target this pawn. I feel like targeting this pawn because I have the option of h5, which is an extra attacking unit on the pawn. Whereas if I put my bishop here, which is also fine, definitely fine, you're hitting this pawn, but if I want to add more pressure, like let's say he moves his king, I guess I can use my queen, but then it's kind of hard until I castle and add a rook. Meanwhile, this one, I can next move, or any move, just go h5. And if his king's here, you know, he has to watch out that I don't put a piece there. But they're both weak. You can target whichever one you want. either bishop square is good. I think you could have moved your queen as well. You could have put your bishop. You had different development schemes. Yeah, so he does move his king here, which tries to protect them, but luckily wastes time in the form of a king move. And I think h5, even though we're wasting time, this is already developed. And like, yeah, you could bring it out and be like, oh, I'm hitting another diagonal. But right now I'm pinpoint precision on this side of the board and his king. So I'm going to continue with h5. And if he pushes, I get that square. If he takes, well, now I recapture and get that square. And this pawn is sufficiently protected, even though his knight and queen hit it, because we have a rook and a queen. So he pushes past, but now without calculating, I mean, I'm going to throw my bishop here. I would love to have my queen there, but that takes long. So let's just put our bishop there. Okay. So now he boxed his king in. Now if our queen took this, that would be checkmate. So in light of that, let's develop our queen with a checkmating threat. And now because his king's here and my pawn is on h5, it's the same thing as me being up the h8 rook. Whether it's on the board or off, makes zero difference, so I won the game. Now queen goes back to b6, threatening the central pawn, but not really because he's just defending against checkmate. The downside is if you can deflect his queen, you win the game. So that would be nice. So I'll move like this. He could still keep the pawn defended though. Let's see. We could just castle, but I want to develop. I mean, how do I want to do this? If I push this pawn, adding a second attacker, he takes that pawn, and I take his knight, he has to take my knight. I go queen f3, threatening checkmate, and the pawn in the center. He goes queen here, giving me a check and defending on f7. I go bishop e3, blocking the check, developing a piece. He brings out the knight, I long castle. Okay. If he finds all the best moves, I just have a much, like I'm still winning, completely winning, but he doesn't get mated. If he doesn't find all the best moves, he'll get mated, so. Either way, I don't really mind. Oh no, I'm out of water. Almost. Now I'm out of water. Okay, so he does take, and we take. Another move I didn't consider because I looked at queen f3, but there's also queen e8, which I didn't calculate, but he didn't. What just happened? He just took a pawn. I just took a knight, but he didn't take back. So aren't I up a knight? Hello? So like, is his okay? So his idea is to pin the knight and maybe take it with the queen or something. I don't know. That's confusing. So what happens if I continue with my checkmating plan? The only piece that can control the light squares for him is his queen. So he has to cover f7. So he's forced to go here. Is he not? And then can I do whatever I want? Probably. But I'm already up a knight. I can just let him take the knight. I'm gonna go here and threaten checkmate. See what he does. I know I'm not developing, I know I'm not castled, but I mean, neither's he. And at the very least, I have a bishop, queen, and knight in his face, and he doesn't really have anything in my face. Well, not really. He does nothing in my face. He can try to put his queen, but it's just one piece. And currently, I'm up a knight for the time being, which I wasn't counting on, but it's a nice change of plan. He has to go there. Now I could just move my knight. I mean, to be fair. I could also do something like this and then win the rook. But I don't want to win the rook and free his position at all. I want to keep him where he is. I like it. So in light of that, I'm just going to bring my knight back and keep my attack up a knight. Now I want to definitely... I kind of want my bishop here, but then I can't long castle because it doesn't block. But to tell you the truth, these pawns are so cemented that even though they're advanced, my king is safer, probably on the king side. So he develops this piece. But can you guys spot the drawback of this move? This whole entire 18 moves was focused and pinpointed on attacking the light squares. And this guy blocks his only defense. Jesus. What's wrong with this guy? Okay, so let's go through the game. We play a 1600. And he plays the Scandinavian. And I am surprised because I knew that whole H3G4 thing was a plan. I wasn't sure exactly when you're supposed to do it. But one inaccuracy, 96%. So apparently, maybe I went down the main line of something. So I know this is main line. I know you put the pawn in the center, but you do that anyway, according to principles. Center and development, and this again, center and development. And I distinctly remember at a lower elo, I didn't know what to do, or I didn't like when they would pin the pin the knight, and castle long, and somehow I would feel stuck. Like I would always play the wrong stuff when I was like 1400, let's say. But now I know that H3 and G4 is an idea. I don't know exactly when. So yeah, we're all center and development so far, normal stuff. But now we have a free move, right? It's already plus 0.8, which is kind of high for move 6. And if this, I don't know if this is the main line of the Scandi, but plus 0.8 on move 6, that's not good. Anyway, he goes bishop h5, trying to keep the pin. Oops. And we break it, which apparently is a move. So he goes here, and the whole idea of this is to use this chunk that we used in the game. And it's almost forced, because you kick the bishop, he has to go here. Now when you put your knight here, I mean, his bishop is stuck. He can't do anything, he can't move the bishop to a different square, and he can't move his pawns except for the h-pawn to give it a new diagonal. But if he moves the h-pawn, it messes up his structure terribly. So we're using this chunk, so even if he wants to get out of it now, he can't. Right? So he does whatever, c6, knight here, I don't know, whatever black does. He goes e6, which looks like a normal move. And then even though you have good developing moves and stuff, I was being more surgical, like pinpointing something, a very focused, specific plan, as opposed to just general development. And I'm doing it only because I'm aware of it, the plan, and you can do it here, I guess. So I go h4, threatening h5, but there's nothing he can do about it. So he should not go down this line, I guess. He should somehow avoid this, but I'm not sure what black's supposed to play. As soon as he does this, the engine says it's plus 2.5, and that's strictly because of this positional weaknesses. 3, 4, it's 7 on 7 pawns. But look, this whole light square, these two weaknesses, just lose you the game. Because in the long run, you can't really defend those squares. You don't have a light square bishop, and these knights can't defend these light squares anytime soon. because wherever they go naturally to develop, like this one will control dark squares and this one controls the wrong light squares, right? It would have to be like on E8 to control these two. So that doesn't make sense. And we have a light square bishop and a queen ready to jump in. So you see they even like queen d3, just trying to get your queen in here right away because that would be so disruptive. But we put the bishop here, and this was the one inaccuracy of the game that they said, and it makes sense. But I mentioned as going through the game, I was saying like you can go bishop c4, bishop d3, queen d3, queen e2. I'm sure there's lots of moves. They like queen d3 because, let me see, after queen d3, if he does the same thing, do we still go h5? Yeah, h5. And again, you're threatening the same thing I threatened in the game, only with the queen instead of the bishop. So that's why it makes more sense. And I even said, oh, I want to get my queen here, but I had already put my bishop there. Takes, and now he can't control the square except with this queen trade. Otherwise, you're just going to infiltrate. And after this trade, it's plus 2.4. Look at these bishops. You're going to be picking stuff up very soon. His king is just in the crossfire. It has nowhere to go but the open center where rooks are going to be. And that's no fun for black. But we put our bishop here. And then he tries to defend this, and he cannot. So we played h5. They like even castling first, which is funny. We play h5. His best move is to take, but he doesn't. He pushes, although it leads to very similar positions. We plant our bishop here, and the computer does not want him to go backwards because then his rook never gets out, and then you're down that rook. It might as well not be there. So they definitely wanted him to go in the center. At least he has a pawn there as cover. You know, it's not fully exposed. But then we bring our queen in, and it's plus 4 because there's no way to defend the light squares once again. He's hitting this pawn, but it's not a real threat because we're threatening mate. And we just apply further pressure. We go down this line where we calculate. He takes, we take. And I calculated him taking, but he did this weird thing that's even worse. And I think just the casual infiltration makes the most sense. Because when there's a weakness that's just so weak, you can take advantage of it right away without moving any of your other army. Like you can do it if it's against the king. He stops it. I just move back casually, and he blunders the game. Ridiculous. I mean, the one problem he needed to solve was his light squares, and he does this. What he really needed to do was knight out, and then knight d8, covering these light squares. It looks dumb, but I think that was necessary to maintain his plus 6 evaluation. But anyway. Now the thing I would take away from this game is not the move order or anything, but the chunk. Just the chunk of this bishop thing right here. I did this in a different game, probably from the black side on the queen side, but as you can see, it appears in multiple games. It's a good chunk to keep. Alright, goodbye.